In the top stories, new traffic lights commissioned. British royals' visit to Jamaica stirs demands for slavery reparations, and Taliban closes Afghan girls' schools hours after reopening. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Wednesday, the 23rd of March, 2022. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, the newly installed traffic lights are now in operation following the official commissioning on Tuesday evening. A commissioning ceremony was held on the Bay Road near the National Museum to mark the event. Among those speaking was Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. This is the second phase of the Traffic Lights Initiative, which activates lights at Wellington Road, the intersections of College Street Gut and Keon Street, College Street Gut and the Bay Road, and the Bay Road and Sandown Road, and along the Bay Road in front of Ram's Supermarket and the Sands Complex. Meanwhile, in a related story, the recent commissioning of Phase 2 of the traffic signal lights will be discussed on the government radio and television program Working for You later today. The special guest will be Barrington Cross, programmer for the traffic signal lights, George Gilbert, director of the Public Works Department, and Inspector Carleen Phipps of the Traffic Department of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. The discussion will focus on the rationale for the installation of the traffic signal lights in and around Bass There, changes to traffic laws, and general education for motorists and pedestrians with respect to road safety. Working for You is broadcast live every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. on ZIZ Radio and other participating radio stations. The program is also streamed live on the SKNIS Facebook page and the SKNIS YouTube channel. In other news, the police are investigating a non-fatal shooting incident that occurred on March 21 in which Devon Paris of Stony Grove was injured. Investigations so far have revealed that Paris was driving his motor Jeep when unknown assailants began shooting at him in the vicinity of Prospect Gap. He received an abrasion and a gunshot wound to the side of his chest. He was transported to the Alexandra Hospital, where he's in stable condition. A 7-month-old baby, who was also in the vehicle at the time of the incident, was unharmed. Personnel from the Forensics Department processed the scene and collected pieces of evidence. The police are urging anyone with information about this incident to contact the Charlestown Police Station by dialing 469-5391, or you can call the nearest police station or the crime hotline at 707. Moving now to news on the regional scene. Britain's Prince William and his wife Kate arrived in Jamaica on Tuesday as part of a week-long Caribbean tour, hours after activists protested to demand reparations for slavery amid growing scrutiny of the British Empire's colonial legacy. France 24 reports.
On the second leg of their Royal Caribbean tour, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge sat down with Jamaican Governor-General Sir Patrick Allen in Kingston, the Queen's representative on the island. Their visit is seen as a bid to convince former colonies to remain within the British Commonwealth, amid rising anti-colonial sentiment on the island. Protesters were out, many demanding reparations for slavery and for the country to turn a page.
I'm here today calling for a better Jamaica. The better Jamaica that I'm calling for not necessarily mean just reparations. Jamaica needs a wholesome development.
They shouldn't be welcomed as leaders of the country, as representatives of the head of state. And it's time for us to move forward and talk about the democratic process.
Before their arrival, 100 Jamaican leaders, including lawyers, activists, and public figures, signed an open letter in which they said the Queen and her predecessors had perpetuated the greatest human rights tragedy in the history of humankind. There are growing calls from within the island country, which is part of 54 member states headed by the Queen, to cut ties with the monarchy and become a republic. The process would involve holding a referendum, making it more complicated than Barbados's formal end to the nation's 400-year relationship with the British monarchy in November 2021, which made the change through a parliamentary vote.
Antigua and Barbuda has opened a UN multicultural office with the aim of deepening country ties. More in this report.
It is a historic moment for Antigua and Barbuda as the country's diplomatic ties with the United Nations deepen further with the establishment of a UN multi-country office.
1, 2, cut.
This office, UN Common Premises, would have come about from the MCO reform in 2019 in order for them to really bring their programmatic offerings closer, especially with key national stakeholders within the various ministries.
The office is the first of its kind for the OECS and Barbados sub-region. Antigua and Barbuda's permanent representative to the United Nations, Dr. Aubrey Webson, was instrumental in the establishment of the official UN premises.
Having experienced the lessons from Hurricane Irma, every member here representing an agency knows how vociferous I was in my advocacy for the United Nations agencies to be closer to the people on the ground so that they could respond faster and more effectively.
In a few weeks, the Central Office will become the new home for the United Nations Development Programme, or UNDP, United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, and the Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO.
Also plans on the way for more UN agencies to join, for example with UN Habitat, under a new adaptation fund endeavor, and possibly others, and I encourage those being with us tonight to follow the momentum.
Rakib Aparicio reporting for ABS News.
Internationally, the Taliban administration in Afghanistan has announced that girls' high schools will be closed hours after they reopened for the first time in nearly 7 months. The backtracking by the Taliban means female students above 6th grade will not be able to attend school. A Ministry of Education notice said on Wednesday that schools for girls will be closed until a plan was drawn up in accordance with Islamic law and Afghan culture, according to Bakhtar News Agency, a government news agency. Al Jazeera's Victoria Gattenby reports.
The day started so well for these girls in Kabul as they returned to school for the first time in 7 months.
Thank God, the Taliban are also like the previous government. Now I don't have any concern about what I have to wear or whether to go to school or not. My family has allowed me, and thank God, now the Taliban has also given us permission to go to school. We are very happy.
But a few hours later, that sense of optimism had completely disappeared. The Taliban-led government suddenly ordered most secondary schools for girls to close. Students packed up their bags and headed home.
I was happy and excited when I found out I was going to school. But we were hardly there for 30 minutes when they kicked us out and shut the door and left us hopeless.
It isn't fair that boys are allowed to go to schools and girls aren't. What have girls done wrong? We want our schools to reopen like before.
Girls in Afghanistan have been waiting for months to attend school. The Taliban pledged to provide them with access to an education after its takeover in August. But since then, most girls have been banned from going to school after the 6th grade. Taliban officials now say they need even more time to create gender-segregated facilities.
I think it's very sad to see after all those months, which is the girls in Afghanistan were been waiting for that day that the schools will be reopened. And unfortunately, today was a very disappointment that they turned back their home without any results. It shows that Taliban are not reliable. They cannot fulfill their promises.
The Taliban's been widely condemned for depriving women and girls of an education. The international community says the right to an education must be upheld if the Taliban-led government wants to receive much-needed aid. Victoria Gattenby, Al Jazeera.
And now for the weather. Current conditions are fair. The temperature for today is 28 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are east-northeast at 14 to 22 miles per hour, gusting to near 35 miles per hour, mainly tonight when fresh winds are expected. Seas are moderate with waves of 4 to 7 feet. A small craft caution is in effect for mainly open eastern waters. The weather forecast in St. Kitts and Nevis for today will be partly sunny with a 40% or moderate chance of showers. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a 40% or moderate chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 6:23 p.m., sunrise tomorrow at 6:12 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.